Jake Martinez sat on his bunk and stared at the metal walls of the starship. His hands shook a little as he cleaned his rifle for the 5th time that day. Rex, his German shepherd, lay beside him with his head on his paws. The dog's brown eyes watched Jake with worry. The ship was called Horizon's Edge, and it carried soldiers from many different worlds. Jake was the only human on board. The other aliens looked at him like he was some kind of joke. They whispered and laughed when they saw him walking with Rex through the halls. "Look at the baby human," said Crix, one of the bug-like Rex soldiers. His forearms clicked together as he made sounds that other Rex thought were funny. "He brings his pet to war like a child brings a toy." Jake kept walking. He had learned not to fight back with words. Rex growled low in his throat, but Jake put his hand on the dog's head to calm him down. 3 months ago, Jake had been training on Earth. He was the youngest person in his class at the Marine Academy. Everyone said he was too young, too small, too green. But the war was going badly and they needed every person they could get. The Zephyrian Empire had been winning for 3 years. They were big lizard-like creatures with sharp teeth and claws. They were fast and strong and they loved to fight. The Galactic Defense Coalition was losing planets every month. Jake's room was small and cold. Rex took up most of the space on the floor. The dog was not just a normal German shepherd. The military had made him stronger and faster. They put small computers in his brain and made his bones harder. His nose could smell things from miles away, and his ears could hear sounds that no normal dog could hear. But the other aliens did not care about that. To them, Rex was just a dumb animal and Jake was just a kid playing soldier. Captain Tony Walsh called a meeting that morning. All the soldiers gathered in the main room. Walsh was an older human with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting this war since it started. "We have a new mission," Walsh said. His voice was rough from years of giving orders. "The planet Kepler 44E2b. Intelligence says there is a small Zephyrian outpost there. We need someone to go down and see what they are doing." The room was quiet. Everyone knew that going to Zephyrian planets was very dangerous. Most soldiers who went on missions like this did not come back. Commander Lisa Barnes stood up. She was a tall woman with short black hair and scars on her face from old battles. "This is a volunteer mission," she said. "We need someone who can move fast and stay hidden." The bug soldiers made clicking sounds with their mouths. The crystal people, called Nithari, made sounds like wind chimes. The gas creatures, called umbrals, made no sound at all, but their bodies changed colors to show they were talking. None of them wanted to go. Jake stood up slowly. His heart was beating fast, but he tried to keep his voice steady. "I will go," he said. The room went completely quiet. Then the aliens started making sounds that Jake knew were laughter. "The baby human wants to die," said Crix. "How cute." "Send someone real," said Ithel, one of the crystal soldiers. Her voice sounded like breaking glass. "Not a child with a pet." Commander Barnes looked at Jake with serious eyes. "Martinez, this is not a training mission. This is real. The Zephyrians will kill you if they find you." "I know," Jake said. Rex stood up beside him and pressed against his leg. "But I can do this. Rex and we can move quiet. We can hide better than the big soldiers." Captain Walsh shook his head. "Jake, you have been in space for 3 months. You have never fought real aliens before." "Then maybe it is time I learned," Jake said. The alien soldiers made more laughing sounds. A big Vrex named Torque stepped forward. He was twice as tall as Jake and had 4 arms with sharp claws at the end of each finger. "Let the little human go," Torque said. His voice sounded like metal scraping on stone. "When he dies, maybe the other humans will send real warriors instead of children and dogs." Jake felt his face get hot with anger, but he did not say anything. Rex growled and showed his teeth, but Jake kept his hand on the dog's head. Commander Barnes walked over to Jake. She looked down at him for a long time. "Why do you want to do this, Martinez?" Jake looked around the room at all the aliens staring at him. "Because someone has to," he said. "And because everyone thinks humans are weak. Maybe it is time to show them they are wrong." Barnes smiled a little. It was the first time Jake had seen her smile since he got on the ship. "All right, Marine," You have your mission. The aliens made more noise, but this time it sounded angry instead of funny. They did not like that the humans were ignoring their advice. Stupid, said Crix. Send the baby to die if you want, but do not blame us when he never comes back. 2 hours later, Jake was in the supply room getting ready for the mission. He packed light, just basic food, water, ammunition, and medical supplies. Rex sat next to him, wearing his own pack and military vest. Commander Barnes came in and watched Jake pack. You know this is probably a one-way trip, she said. Yes, ma'am, Jake said. He did not look at her. If he looked at her face, he might lose his courage. The other aliens think you are going to die down there. Maybe they are right. Barnes put her hand on Jake's shoulder. Maybe they are wrong. Humans have something the other species do not understand. We do not give up, even when we should. Jake looked at Rex. The dog's tail wagged once, slow and steady. Rex and I, we will come back, Jake said. And when we do, maybe those aliens will think different about humans. 1 hour later, Jake and Rex were in a small ship heading down to the planet's surface. Behind them, the horizon's edge got smaller and smaller until it was just another star in the black sky. Jake looked at Rex and scratched behind the dog's ears. Just you and me now, boy, he said. Time to show them what humans can do. Rex's tail wagged, and his eyes were bright and ready. Whatever was waiting for them on the planet, below they would face it together. The small ship shook as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Jake held tight to his seat while Rex pressed his body against the floor. Through the window, Jake could see red sand and rocks stretching as far as his eyes could reach. 2 suns burned in the purple sky, making everything look like it was on fire. The ship landed behind a large rock formation. Jake checked his gear one more time and opened the door. Hot air hit his face like a slap. The temperature was over 100 degrees and the air was thin and hard to breathe. Stay close, Rex, Jake whispered. The dog's enhanced hearing could pick up sounds from miles away, and Jake did not want to be heard by enemies. They walked carefully across the sand. Jake's boots left deep prints, but Rex moved like a shadow, his enhanced muscles making no noise at all. The intelligence report said there should be a small outpost 2 miles north of their landing site. Jake checked his compass and started walking. After 1 hour of walking, Rex stopped suddenly. His ears went up and his body went stiff. Jake dropped to the ground and pulled out his binoculars. What he saw made his blood run cold. The intelligence was wrong. Very wrong. Instead of a small outpost, there was a huge military base stretching across the valley below them. Hundreds of Zephyrian soldiers moved between large metal buildings. Tanks and flying ships filled the air. This was not a small group. This was an invasion force. Jake counted at least 5,000 enemy soldiers. He could see weapon factories, supply depots, and landing pads for more ships. The Zephyrians were getting ready to attack coalition worlds, and nobody knew about. Rex pressed his nose against Jake's arm. The dog's cybernetic implants were picking up electronic signals from the base. His enhanced brain was already analyzing patrol patterns and guard positions. Jake knew he had to get closer to gather more information. But first he had to deal with the Zephyrian scout patrol that was walking toward their position. 3 Zephyrian soldiers climbed the hill. They were 8 feet tall with green scales and yellow eyes. Their long tails dragged behind them in the sand and their clawed hands held energy weapons. Jake had never seen a Zephyrian in person before. They were bigger and scarier than he had imagined. Jake lay flat behind a rock and signaled Rex to circle around. The dog disappeared into the rocks like smoke. His gray and black fur made him almost invisible against the stone. The first Zephyrian was 20 feet away when Rex struck. The dog moved faster than Jake's eyes could follow. His enhanced legs launched him through the air, and his reinforced teeth closed around the alien's throat. The Zephyrian made a surprised hissing sound, then fell to the ground without another noise. The second Zephyrian spun around and raised his weapon, but Rex was already moving. The dog's cybernetic implants let him see electrical fields, so he knew exactly where the alien would aim. Rex dodged left as the energy beam burned the air where he had been standing. Jake rolled out from behind his rock and fired 3 shots from his rifle. The bullets hit the Zephyrian in the chest and the big alien fell backward into the sand. The third Zephyrian was smarter. He did not try to shoot Rex. Instead, he spoke into a small device on his wrist calling for help. But Rex was already behind him. The dog jumped onto the alien's back and knocked him down. Jake ran over and hit the Zephyrian on the head with the butt of his rifle. The alien stopped moving. Jake and Rex dragged the 3 bodies behind the rocks and covered them with sand. Rex's enhanced senses told him that no other patrols were nearby. But that would not last long. They moved closer to the base, staying hidden in the rocks and shadows. Jake used his binoculars to study the enemy positions, while Rex's implants recorded electronic signals and guard patterns. What Jake learned made him sick to his stomach. The Zephyrians were not just building an invasion force. They were building 3 invasion forces. The base had enough ships and soldiers to attack 3 different coalition worlds at the same time. And according to the battle plans Jake could see through his binoculars, the attacks would happen in 2 days. Jake tried to contact the horizon's edge with his radio, but the planet's atmosphere was blocking his signal. He was alone with information that could save millions of lives, but no way to share it. As the 2 suns started to set, more Zephyrian patrols came looking for the missing scouts. Jake and Rex had to move deeper into the rocky hills to stay hidden. But every patrol that went out made the search bigger. Rex's ears twitched, and he looked toward the base. His enhanced hearing had picked up something. Jake listened carefully and heard the sound of engines starting up. Big engines. Through his binoculars, Jake watched as 50 Zephyrian flying ships took off from the base. They spread out in different directions, searching the hills with bright lights. The enemy knew something was wrong, and they were not going to give up until they found it. Jake packed his gear quickly. They could not stay in one place anymore. The hunters were coming, and there were too many to fight. But as they prepared to run, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He could not let the base launch those invasion fleets. Even if he could not call for help, maybe he could stop the attacks himself. He looked at Rex and smiled. The dog's tail wagged once, and Jake knew his partner understood. They were not running away anymore, they were going hunting. Jake and Rex ran through the darkness as the Zephyrian search ships flew overhead. The bright light swept back and forth across the rocks, looking for any sign of movement. Jake pressed his back against a large stone and tried to catch his breath. His lungs burned from the thin air and the running. Rex sniffed the air and looked toward a crack in the rocky hill. His enhanced nose had found something. Jake followed the dog into the narrow opening and discovered it led to a cave system that went deep underground. The caves were old, much older than the Zephyrian base. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, and the air smelled like dust and ancient secrets. Jake turned on his small flashlight and saw that the tunnels went in many directions. "Good boy, Rex," Jake whispered. "This will hide us from their heat sensors." They moved deeper into the caves. Jake's flashlight showed more carved symbols and strange pictures on the walls. Some of the pictures showed creatures that looked like the Zephyrians but wearing different clothes and carrying different weapons. These caves were from a time long before the current war. Rex stopped and growled low in his throat. His cybernetic implants were picking up movement ahead. Jake turned off his light and listened. He could hear the sound of clawed feet scraping on stone. The Zephyrians had found the cave entrance. "Search every tunnel," a voice hissed in the darkness. "The human cannot hide forever." Jake counted at least 6 different voices. A full hunter team had followed them underground. But Jake was not worried anymore. In the open desert, the Zephyrians had advantages. Down here in the dark tunnels, Jake and Rex were the hunters. Jake knew that humans were built for long-distance running. On Earth, ancient humans had hunted by chasing animals until the animals got too tired to run anymore. The Zephyrians were faster and stronger, but they could not keep going as long as a human could. Jake and Rex moved through the tunnels like ghosts. Rex's enhanced senses told him exactly where each Zephyrian was located. Jake used his knowledge of military tactics to set traps and ambushes. The first trap was simple. Jake tied a thin wire across a narrow tunnel at ankle height. When the first Zephyrian came through, he tripped and fell hard on the stone floor. Rex was waiting and ended the alien's life before he could make a sound. The second trap used the cave's natural features. Jake loosened some rocks above a tunnel entrance and waited. When two Zephyrians walked underneath, Jake pushed the rocks down. The aliens were buried under tons of stone, but the Zephyrian leader was smart. His name was War Commander Vex Thul, and he had been hunting enemies for 20 years. He quickly figured out that the human was using the caves against them. Spread out, Vex Thul ordered his remaining soldiers. Do not follow his path. Make him come to us. The hunter team split up and blocked the main tunnel exits. Now Jake and Rex were trapped deeper in the cave system, but as they went further underground, they found something that made Jake's heart race with excitement. The caves opened into a huge underground chamber. Ancient machines lined the walls, covered in dust but still humming with power. In the center of the chamber was a massive device that looked like a giant cannon pointed up toward the surface. Jake studied the ancient symbols and realized what he was looking at. This was a planetary defense weapon, built by whoever lived on this world before the Zephyrians came. The symbols showed pictures of the weapon destroying ships in space. This was not just a gun, this was a planet killer. Rex's implants detected the electronic signals from the weapon. The machine was still working, just waiting for someone to turn it on. Jake realized that the Zephyrians had built their base directly above this ancient weapon. They were planning to use it in their invasion. But Jake also realized something else. If he could turn the weapon against the Zephyrian base above, he could destroy the entire invasion force. No ships would launch, no coalition worlds would be attacked, millions of lives would be saved. The only problem was War Commander Vex Thul, the key. Zephyrian leader stepped out of the shadows on the other side of the chamber. He was bigger than the other aliens Jake had seen, with darker scales and more scars. His yellow eyes glowed in the light from the ancient machines. Clever little human, Vex Thul said. His voice echoed in the big chamber. You have led us quite a chase, but this ends now. Behind Vex Thul, Jake could see the other surviving hunters moving to block the exits. There were 4 of them left, plus their leader. Rex pressed against Jake's leg and growled. The dog's enhanced muscles were ready for action. Jake looked at the control panel of the ancient weapon. The symbols were starting to make sense to him. Humans were good at recognizing patterns, and Jake could see how the controls worked. But he needed time to figure out how to activate the weapon. You are just a baby, Vex Thul continued, walking closer. Your people send children to fight a warrior's war. It is pathetic. Jake raised his rifle, but he knew it would not be enough. Vex Thul was wearing armor and he had 4 soldiers with him. In a straight fight, Jake and Rex would lose. But Jake was not planning a straight fight. You are right, Jake said, backing toward the weapon controls. I am just a rookie, just a kid with a dog, but you know what? Sometimes that is enough. Rex barked once, loud and sharp. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. And in that moment, Jake realized that the ancient weapon was not the only surprise waiting in these caves. The symbols on the walls were not just decorations. They were warnings, and something in the deep darkness had just woken up. The sound that came from the deep caves was not made by any living thing Jake had ever heard. It was like metal scraping against stone, mixed with the whistle of wind through broken glass. The ancient symbols on the walls began to glow with a soft blue light. War Commander Vex Thul stopped walking toward Jake. His yellow eyes looked around the chamber with confusion. What is that sound? He hissed. Jake did not know either, but he was not going to waste the chance. While the Zephyrians were distracted, he moved closer to the weapon controls. The ancient symbols were glowing brighter now, and Jake could feel the machine vibrating under his hands. Rex's cybernetic implants were going crazy. The dog's enhanced senses were picking up electronic signals from all around the chamber. Whatever was making that noise, it was big, and it was coming closer. The first security drone came out of a hidden panel in the wall. It was the size of a small car made of dark metal that reflected the blue light. Red sensors glowed where its eyes should be, and long metal arms ended in sharp cutting tools. Defense systems, Jake whispered. The weapon has guards. 3 more drones appeared from other hidden panels. They moved on silent treads, scanning the chamber with their red sensors. When they saw the Zephyrians, the drones made that terrible scraping sound again. War Commander Vexthul raised his energy weapon and fired at the nearest drone. The blast hit the machine's armor and bounced off without leaving a mark. The drone turned its attention to Vexthul and moved toward him with surprising speed. "Fall back!" Vexthul shouted to his soldiers, but it was too late. The security drones had identified all the Zephyrians as threats. Metal arms grabbed two of the alien soldiers and threw them against the stone walls. The sound of breaking bones echoed through the chamber. Jake used the chaos to reach the weapon controls. The symbols were clear to him now. His human brain's pattern recognition was working better than any computer. He could see how to charge the weapon, how to aim it, and how to fire it. But the weapon needed time to power up, and the security drones had noticed Jake too. One of the drones rolled toward Jake, its cutting arms spinning. Rex jumped in front of his human and barked a warning. The drone's sensors focused on the dog, trying to decide if Rex was a threat. Jake held his breath. If the ancient security system saw Rex as an enemy, they would both die. But the drone's sensors were designed to recognize the original builders of this place, and Rex, with his mix of organic and cybernetic parts, confused the machine's programming. The drone stopped moving. Its red sensors flickered between different colors as it tried to process what Rex was. Finally, the machine decided that Rex was not a threat and turned away to hunt the Zephyrians. "Good boy," Jake whispered, scratching Rex's ears. "They think you belong here." War Commander Vexthul was fighting for his life against two security drones. His energy weapon was useless against their armor, so he was using his claws and natural speed to stay alive. But even a warrior of his skill could not fight ancient war machines forever. Jake's hands flew over the weapon controls. The symbols told him the story of this place. Long ago, the people of this world had built this weapon to defend against invaders. But the invaders had won anyway, and the weapon had waited in the darkness for thousands of years. Now Jake was going to use it to save other worlds from invasion. The weapon charged slowly. Jake could feel the power building under his hands, but he could also hear more Zephyrian soldiers coming down into the caves. The search teams from the surface had found the entrance and were coming to help their war commander. Rex pressed against Jake's leg and whimpered. The dog's enhanced hearing could detect the footsteps of at least 20 soldiers moving through the tunnels. They would be here soon. Vexthul managed to damage one of the security drones by ripping out its sensors. The machine crashed into a wall and stopped moving, but the effort had cost him. 3 long cuts across his chest leaked green blood onto the stone floor. "Human!" Vexthul called out. "You cannot escape. My soldiers will be here soon. Surrender now and I will give you a quick death." Jake looked at the weapon's charge indicator. Only 50% power. He needed more time. "I do not think so," Jake called back. "Rex and I are not giving up." As if the dog understood, Rex barked once and ran toward the tunnel entrance. Jake watched in horror as his partner charged toward the sound of approaching soldiers. But then Jake realized what Rex was doing. The dog was not running away. He was buying Jake time. Rex's enhanced muscles carried him through the tunnels faster than any normal dog could move. His cybernetic implants let him see in the dark and detect enemies before they saw him, and his training had taught him to think like a soldier. The first Zephyrian soldiers Rex met in the tunnels were not ready for a dog that fought like a commando. Rex used his speed and small size to attack and disappear before the aliens could react. He bit ankles and knocked soldiers down, then vanished into side tunnels before they could shoot back. In the main chamber, Jake watched the weapon charge to 75%. War Commander Vexthul had destroyed another security drone, but the effort had cost him more blood. The alien warrior was getting weaker. "Your pet will not save you," Vexthul gasped. "My soldiers will kill him and then come for you." But Jake could hear the sounds of battle in the tunnels, and he knew Rex was winning. The dog was not just fighting individual soldiers anymore. He was using tactics that Jake had taught him, turning the enemy's size and numbers against them in the narrow tunnels. The weapon reached 90% charge. Jake's hands moved to the targeting controls. Through the ancient symbols, he could see the layout of the surface above. The Zephyrian base was directly overhead, exactly where the weapon was aimed. Vexthal saw what Jake was doing and tried to charge toward the controls. But the last security drone blocked his path and the war commander was too weak to fight it effectively. The weapon reached full charge. Jake's finger hovered over the firing control. One touch would destroy the entire invasion force above, but it would also collapse the caves and kill everyone inside, including Rex. Jake looked toward the tunnels where his partner was still fighting. He could not see Rex, but he could hear the dog's barks echoing through the stone passages. Rex was still alive, still fighting, still buying Jake the time he needed. Jake closed his eyes and made his choice. Some things were more important than coming home alive. He pressed the firing control. The ancient weapon fired with a sound like thunder breaking the world in half. A beam of pure energy shot up through the stone ceiling and into the sky above. The entire chamber shook as rocks fell from the walls and dust filled the air. Jake was thrown backward by the force of the blast. His ears rang and his vision was blurry, but through the chaos he could see the weapon's energy beam cutting through the cave roof like it was made of paper. Far above, he heard explosions as the beam hit the Zephyrian base. War Commander Vexthal was on his knees holding his bleeding chest. The last security drone lay in pieces around him. His yellow eyes stared at Jake with something that might have been respect. "You destroyed them all," Vexthal said. His voice was weak but filled with wonder. "Your own people, the Coalition fleet, above. You killed everyone to stop our invasion." Jake struggled to his feet. "No," he said. "The Coalition fleet is not here yet. I only killed your invasion force." The ceiling continued to crack and fall. Jake knew the caves would collapse soon, but first he had to find Rex. His partner was still somewhere in the tunnels, still fighting Zephyrian soldiers who did not know their base was already destroyed. "Rex!" Jake called out. His voice echoed through the falling stones. "Rex, come back!" From deep in the tunnels, Jake heard a familiar bark. Relief flooded through him like cool water. Rex was alive. War Commander Vexthal tried to stand but fell back down. Green blood covered the stone around him. "Human," he said. "Before you, go tell me your name." "Jake Martinez," Jake said. "And that is Rex, my partner." "Partner," Vexthal repeated the word slowly. "Not pet, not tool, partner." The alien warrior was quiet for a moment. "In 20 years of war, I have never seen loyalty like that. Your Rex chose to fight 20 soldiers alone so you could complete your mission." "That is what partners do," Jake said simply. Vexthal nodded. "I understand now why the Coalition fears humans. Not because you are strong, because you make each other stronger." Rex came running out of the tunnels, limping on his front left leg, but alive. His fur was dirty, and he had small cuts on his face, but his tail wagged when he saw Jake. The dog ran to his human and pressed against his legs. "Good boy," Jake said, kneeling down to check Rex's injuries. "You did good, boy." The ceiling cracked louder. More rocks fell around them. Jake knew they had to leave now or they would be buried alive. But War Commander Vexthal grabbed Jake's arm as he started to go. "Wait," the alien said. "Take this." He pulled a small device from his belt and handed it to Jake. "It is a Zephyrian emergency beacon. When your coalition finds it, they will know what happened here." "Why are you helping?" "Me?" Jake asked. Vexthal's yellow eyes were getting dim, but he smiled. It was a scary smile with too many teeth, but Jake could see it was real. "Because you earned it, Jake Martinez. You fought like a warrior. You and your partner both." Jake took the beacon and put it in his pack. Then he and Rex ran for the tunnel that led back to the surface. Behind them, the ancient chamber collapsed in a roar of falling stone. The climb to the surface was hard. The caves were filling with dust and smoke from the destroyed base above. Several times tunnels collapsed just after Jake and Rex had passed through them, but the dog's enhanced senses found safe paths through the chaos. When they finally reached the surface, Jake could not believe what he saw. Where the Zephyrian base had been, there was now only a huge crater filled with twisted metal and fire. The ancient weapon had completely destroyed the invasion force. Ships, soldiers, weapons. Everything was gone. Jake activated his emergency radio. The planet's atmosphere was clearing now that the Zephyrian jamming equipment was destroyed. After a few minutes, he heard a familiar voice. "This is Commander Barnes on the horizon's edge. Is anyone alive down there?" "Commander, this is Marine Jake Martinez," Jake said into the radio. "Mission accomplished." There was a long silence. Then Barnes's voice came back, and Jake could hear the amazement in it. "Martinez, you are alive? What happened to the Zephyrian base?" Jake looked at the smoking crater and smiled. "I blew it up, ma'am, all of it." 6 hours later, Coalition ships filled the sky above Kepler 442b. Jake and Rex waited by their emergency beacon, sharing a ration pack and watching the ships land. Rex's injuries were not serious, and Jake had used his medical kit to clean the cuts on the dog's face. Commander Barnes was the first person off the lead ship. She ran to Jake and Rex with a look of complete disbelief on her face. "How?" she asked. "How did you destroy an entire Zephyrian invasion force?" Jake scratched Rex behind the ears. "We had help from the locals," he said, "and Rex is a very good partner." Barnes looked at the crater where the base had been. Intelligence teams were already studying the wreckage. "Martinez, you just stopped 3 planetary invasions. Do you understand what that means?" Jake was quiet for a moment. He thought about War Commander Vexthul and what the alien had said about making each other stronger. "It means humans are not as weak as everyone thinks, ma'am." 3 days later, Jake and Rex were back on the horizon's edge. But everything was different now. The alien soldiers who had laughed at them before now stepped out of their way in the corridors. When Crix the Vrex saw them coming, he actually saluted. Captain Walsh called Jake to his office. "Martinez, I have your new orders," he said. "Coalition. Command wants you to train other human-animal teams. They think what you and Rex did could change how we fight this war." Jake looked down at Rex, who was sleeping at his feet. The dog's tail twitched in his dreams, probably chasing enemies through tunnels again. "We will do our best, sir," Jake said. Walsh smiled. "I do not think anyone doubts that anymore, Marine. Not after what the rookie human and his deadly tail-wagging war machine accomplished down there." Outside the window, stars stretched across the darkness of space. Jake knew that somewhere out there, other Zephyrian fleets were planning more invasions. But now the Coalition had something new to fight them with. They had humans, and humans never fought alone.